My name is Yousko. I was class of '87. In fact, I started one of my first businesses with Olivia's dad, Angelo. We did Alcala Sportswear here on campus, and we were trying to figure out if it's still actually in business. USD may have monopolized on that, but that's okay. So, but selling T-shirts and sweatshirts, and then we also did a lot of private label selling to the fraternities and sororities here on campus. USD is my home. We got married, my wife and I got married here at Founders. We were just back for homecoming. I was on the alumni board. So I will be given a pitch that you need to remember. Free product here, so give back to USD. But this is a fantastic, very, very special place. What I'd like to add, how many of you are entrepreneurs? It's okay, don't be bashful. Good, good. How many of you have your own business right now? Excellent, good, good, good. So this is our story, and definitely the entrepreneurial spirit. And so what I'd like to do is take some time, share our journey over the last 24 years of kind of where we started and how we ended up. What we'll try to do is go quickly through our history. If you have questions or comments or anything, feel free to interrupt me at any time. But then also kind of talk about where we are today and retailers, the landscape, product development, sourcing, et cetera. So we'll try to cover all of that in, 35 minutes or 45 minutes? So today, when we went to USD, you guys are going to get a great education. But those of you who are entrepreneur or who have your own business, you know that it's a whole different world when you're actually doing it. No matter what, there's no book that can teach you when your 40-foot container gets dropped off on a dock in Ensenada, Mexico, and it's supposed to be in Long Beach. That's not on any page in any book. So I'll come back to that later. Remember that. But that's been the beauty, and that's the fun about being entrepreneurial, is there's always a solution. You just need to figure out how you get there. So today, SJ Creations was built by my wife, Sunday, and myself. So we're a family business, married for 24 to almost 25 years, in business for 24 years. So if you want a really good challenge, try that one on. So it's been fantastic. Today we're about a $20 million company. We sell to major retailers. Bath and body product is our core business. It would kind of show that, so we'll just keep going. So, but Bath and body is our core business. We sell to major retailers here in the US, Canada, the UK, and we source product both here in the US and over in China. Of course, you hear China, and yes, tariffs, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Each of you should have a product in front of you. And so one of the things that I like is that this is real product. This is actually sold product. We made these products for TJ Maxx, and kind of just a brief little teaser that we'll go into a little bit later. This was job 17567M. All of our jobs, we do a lot of in and outs, especially with the discounters. And so therefore, each one has to have its own identity because we're not doing everyday product for them. Discounters typically don't buy that. Top line kind of facts here. These are oil sets. We got the order in August of 2017. We had 8 different oil sets. There were 8 different designs, and these are actually a second set that we did here in 2018. But in 2017, there were 8 different oils, over 75,000 units on order. We had to design, source, build, ship on time by October, so 90 days. So we will talk a little bit more about that and walk through kind of a day in the life of our products. But let me take a moment and rewind. So basically, how it all started, and Aaron mentioned this, is that greatest job offer ever was I got offered a job with the Coleman Company. So anybody, a camping person, Coleman Outdoor Products. So we were working here. I was working for the San Diego Princess Hotel. They were one of my customers. I told them I was going to go sell telephones. They said, telephones? Why don't you sell camping gear? I'm a camper. I would live. The guy had me right there. Then he said, I don't know if I can afford you. I said, give me a shot. He gave me a bonus, a salary, commission, a big cell phone because it's 1987, and a company car. So it was like, this is golden. Then he told me I could work in LA, and then I got transferred to San Diego. And so I worked for Coleman a total of 6 years. The first 3 years, San Diego, LA. And one day, a company called Price Club, everybody know Price Club? Price Club was the original club concept. They were right here in San Diego on Morena Boulevard, and one day they merged with Costco. And to every salesperson's nightmare, the buying office moved from San Diego to Seattle. My guys looked at me and said, hey, we love you, but you got no territory left. It went from $10 million to $1.5 million. Why don't you move to Wichita, Kansas? I said, Wichita, Kansas? I grew up in LA, came here for school, never thought I'd ever leave San Diego. And I said, well, 24, 25, you know what? This is the time I'm gonna do it. So I decided I'll go to Wichita, and I was gonna run the club business. I ended up doing brand management for Peak One camping gear. It turned out to be a fantastic experience. Had 3 goals when I went. I was gonna buy a house. It's Wichita, gotta be able to buy a house there. Get my MBA. Coleman paid for the MBA, which was fantastic. And third, I was gonna learn how to fly. Wichita is the home to Raytheon, Cessna, Boeing. It's like, this is perfect. So 3 years at Coleman, everything's going great. Got the house, got the MBA, wrote my business plan for what we ended up doing, got a wife instead of a learn to fly. So wife turned into the business partner. And so she was from Kansas, and basically we moved out, or I came out here one time to go surfing up in Torrey Pines. She went running with my buddy's girlfriend in January. She's like, I can live out here. So needless to say, 1996, my wife and I, she was working for Coleman as well. She was in marketing, I was in sales. She was in product development, I was selling to various different customers and so forth. Basically, we both quit same day. She quit to the president of the company. I quit to my direct boss at that point. We basically got rented a U-Haul truck. We packed up what we had, which was pretty little, and my truck, the company car, the Coleman company ended up selling that back to me, which was fantastic for $1,500. So that was basically our only asset. Drove across country into Leucadia, California. We moved into a little cinder block place up near Encinitas, 2-bedroom place. Moved in, connected the phone, real phone, no cell phone at that point, and opened the door. We're open for business. And so we shared an office, and within 12 hours, Sunday was like, yeah, I'm not gonna be in the same office as you. So she bailed, moved to the kitchen. Since then, we've reconciled, shall we say. We actually shared an office for about 10 years after that. We now have our own offices and so forth. She does most of the sales, pretty much all of the sales. I then take, and who's a salesperson here? Who's an operations person? So I take the sales, shall we say, mess sometimes, and I create and we figure out how to do it. For instance, this right here, these are flowers in here, and so this is a flower body oil. So Sunday went, sold this to TJ Maxx. We sold 50,000 units of it. We'd never ever put a flower oil or flowers in the bottle. So we had to figure out from an operations standpoint, how do we get this flowers in the bottle economically to still meet the price point? And so we were able to figure out that we went to China. China has a flower mart. We have a factory in China. Our workers were able to put all the flowers in. We ship the flowers in the bottle here to our facility in Fullerton, our contract manufacturer. He fills them up, puts them in a box, and we're ready to go. So those are the fun parts. Sunday is fantastic at selling, probably the best salesperson I know. Kind of close to your dad, but I think she'd outsell him. So, but she does fantastic, and basically there's never no in her vocabulary. So with that, we're now open. We're living the dream. Back to our business plan. So when I was with Wichita State University, wrote a business plan, and what that started with was to get in the manufacturing rep business, so representing other manufacturers of sporting goods, sell their products for them. And then as we developed and we got more stable, we were looking at the import business. The import business at that time was blossoming. There was huge opportunities there. We could go from manufacturing rep, where we're gonna have 5 to 10% commission, to moving into manufacturing our own products overseas and making 20 to 25 points. Of course, the challenge is that the risk is much higher, because now we own it, we're the end supplier. Once you get to the Pacific Ocean, you basically are responsible. It doesn't matter what happens overseas. And so with that, 7 Summit Sports was born. We were representing about 20 to 25 different manufacturers of sporting goods, some really good, cool products, some like, oh my God, really, we're selling this stuff? And so we were doing that in Southern California, Arizona, and Nevada. At that point then, it was the Wild West. We were focused on our sporting goods, but if you brought us an opportunity, we'd try to take a look at it. We were doing closeouts. We were helping a guy that was trying to develop a company that had it's called Hot Sea, and you put some hot tablet or a tablet in, you add hot water, and you pull a string, and it heats an MRE. You know, like, oh, it's so cool. Didn't go anywhere. We also did some consulting. And so one of the things that helped us in this was the next part, which is our consulting part of our business. And so there you go, the big break. So the big break. So we had great relationships when we left Coleman. And it was a fantastic experience. We had great people we worked for. They would call us from time to time and say, hey, we've got these closeouts. We got to move this product. Can you help us out? So they called one day and said, hey, we've got these soft-sided coolers. You've seen them now, and they're much more fancy, looking like that, 6-pack, 12-pack wine cooler, et cetera. And so we said, yeah, sure. So we're trying to sell them to our normal channel, and Sunday was consulting with this sportswear company and helping them out. And one of the people that was working there said, hey, have you ever talked to Trader Joe's? And I said, no idea. She didn't even know who Trader Joe's was. So he calls Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's says, yeah, I'm interested. Can you send me a sample? Send him a sample. They get the soft-sided coolers. The buyer says, awesome, I'll take them. Fantastic. So we call our buddies in Canada, and in Coleman, Canada, and say, hey, we'll take them. Oh, crap, quota. So anybody know what quota is? So quota was established. Everything has tariffs, right? So now we all know everyone's learning more about tariffs, right? Very, very big topic. So there's tariffs that we put on each of our different countries, and that helps to make a more competitive environment. And so the cut and sew business is very, very big in the US. North Carolina, LA market, tons of cut and sew. And so what we were trying to do as a government was try to regulate some of that and to slow down the shift from the US to China, to Mexico, et cetera. And so quota basically said that you could only bring in so much of a certain material each year. And as a manufacturer or an importer, you had to buy that fabric for that year, and you could only bring it in on that year. Well, these soft-sided coolers had quota from a year previous. And so what happened was that we were buying a closeout that was a year old. Now we were going to try to go to the Chinese factory and say, hey guys, can we get your quota and buy it again and bring it in here? And it's like, forget it. There's no way that would happen. So needless to say, when Sunday was in product development, she'd made one trip to China. She had gotten some business cards. And so we said, well, you know what? That door closed. Why don't we see if we can go ahead and connect with these people in China, and they were actually in Taiwan at that point, and see if they're interested in doing business. And so sure enough, they responded immediately, said no problem, but unfortunately your MOQ, your minimum order quantity, is 50,000 pieces. And we had the order from traders for 5,000 pieces. We're like, all right, well, let's pitch this to the buyer, because our thought is never go to the buyer without some kind of solution, right? So yeah, we can't get you the ones out of Canada, but we could get you these, and we could make them ourselves. And so it just so happened that the buyer said, look, I'm super busy right now. I don't have time. Come see me in 3 weeks. I'm like, fantastic. So we said, okay. Took 3 weeks, developed our product, went up and met with her, coat and tie, sit in front of the buyer. This is great. This is excellent. She loves us for some reason. We go back, and that's like on a Friday, and she says, you know what? I got to show my management, but I think it really looks good. We had 6 different designs that we'd come up with, very simplistic. And she said, yeah, let me take a look. And she picked 3 of them. She calls us back on Monday and says, it's a go. How many do I have to order? And Sunday says 50,000 units. I remember this like we're sitting right here, you and me. And she's like 50,000, and the buyer's like 15,000? No, 50,000. Okay, I'll take them. Like, holy cow. So $250,000 order, 50,000 pieces. Celebrate, dance, do the whole thing, everything's awesome. Oh boy, what do we do now? We don't have money. We've never bought a product from overseas. We've never been overseas. How do you get it from over there to over here? And so that was the next thing. And so luckily, it was about November, and we didn't have to deliver until March or April. And so the first 30 days was, how do we find money? Because that's the critical piece, right? Everybody who's an entrepreneur or been in the business, you got to have money. And so we went out and, of course, The banks, always entertaining. You want what? Oh, let's see what you have in collateral. That truck that's out there, and it's the 4-year-old truck, yeah, that's probably not gonna work. So we kept going, figured that in our pricing models that we probably need to go to Guido. Guido's gonna probably charge us 20%, and hey, it's gonna cost us a lot of money. Kept finding places, stumbled on a place up in Oregon, and they were gonna finance our PO. And so the cool thing about being dumb and stupid was that we thought, okay, well, once we get the money, then we go. And so basically there was a fee for them just taking the order. And then the rest of the fee was based on how long your money was out. So if we gave you our money on November 1st and we kept it, and we didn't get paid until January 1st, it's out 60 days, your price goes way up. Trader Joe's pays 10 days. Fantastic. So all of a sudden, and I'm new, and we're like, hey, we got to check this out and see what goes on. We'd call CFOs and like, oh my gosh, they're the best people to work with. They will pay on time, and sure enough, they did. And so needless to say, that 20% ended up being about 5% because they paid so quickly. So that launched us. That got us going. While we went, a couple of things beyond the money, we had to find a freight company. So one of the things we realized, everybody can find a product over in China. You go on Alibaba, you go on any of those sites, you can find product. How do you get it here? How do you make sure that you can get the letter of credit, trust your supplier? How do you know that the right product is going to get shipped? And so one of the things we did was we went to Taiwan, and then while we were in Taiwan, we went over to China, established some relationships with the idea that this could be a longer-term thing. We've met up with a couple of different ocean freight brokers who basically take care of the whole transaction. So they'll take care of getting the product on the container, shipping it on the vessel, bring it in here, clear customs for you. Here's your container. What would you like to do with it? So it turned out to be 8 containers of product, 8 40-foot containers. So my folks live up in LA. We'd go down to the port and look at the boats and go, wow. And they've got 8,000 containers on a boat, and here's our little 8 containers. Needless to say, it turned out fantastic. It was a very smooth production. It got into the stores. Unfortunately, at that point, they only had 200 stores. And so 50,000 units, 200 stores, they bought more than Walmart would have bought. They had those products for a long time. They still may be a few left there. But luckily, the buyer liked us, and basically we were able to keep building business. And so in that business, what we did was now the import door for us was open. We now had figured out kind of what to do and how to do it. And so we moved into, at that point, Trader Joe's had a small housewares section. And in that section, they had platters and plates and bowls and so forth. And our buyer, again, somehow just hit that relationship. And her and Sunday would go out, and they'd go out to Pier 1 and Crate and Barrel and different places, and they'd look for cool designs, and they'd say, oh, cool, this is it. We'd put our own touch on it and start bringing in containers of product. And so in that importing business, we did everything from foam brains to knives, to ceramics, to sushi dishes, to you name it, pretty much anything. And that ended up being one of our problems, because we would go to a buyer and we'd say, Miss Buyer, we have this product. And they'd say, what can you do? And we'd say, we can do anything. Well, when you tell somebody you can do anything, the problem is we don't process that. What does anything mean? And so we found that we had to be much more specific in what we were doing. And so that worked out well. In fact, to the point where one of the things that we would do is we would go up and set up a hotel room up in Pasadena, and we would have about as big as this place, and we'd show all kinds of product. We'd have ceramics and buckets and you name it. And at one point, Traders had a fourth quarter basket business, and just little baskets. And what would happen was that customers would go into Trader Joe's and they would buy a basket, and then they would walk around the store and they'd put all the cool stuff in the basket, right? And then give it as a gift. So a great idea. And so Sunday said to the buyer, hey, we'd love to get in that basket business. The buyer said, do not. Nope, we're not touching that basket business. Me being a good Catholic boy raised here at USD, I'm like, honey, they said no. Of course, Sunday, being a strong woman, had baskets there. Buyer sees the baskets. Buyer says, oh my God, these are beautiful. Price point went up, that we were talking about earlier, took the price point up, ended up doing 20 to 40 containers a year for about 6 years of baskets. It was a fantastic piece of business. But that's that part where don't say no, continue to try to work through and be respectful, but who knows what might happen. So that got us to one point. Next, the bigger break. So one day, we're all minding our own business. Towards the end of the day, at this point, we have a daughter, Spencer. She's about 6 months old. We have a lady from Ireland who's helping us out, and she's kind of working with us, and she's helping to raise Spencer. And so one of our buyers calls up and says, hey, can you guys do a salt scrub? Does anybody know what a salt scrub is? We didn't. Sure we can, no problem. So she says, all right, great, get me some samples. So we hang up, we go to this place before Google, the Yellow Pages, open up the physical Yellow Pages, go down, contract manufacturer, find a guy right here in San Diego, call him up and say, hey, we got an order for a salt scrub. Can you do salt scrubs? The guy says, of course I can. So needless to say, ask a bunch of questions. That gets going. Sunday hands, or Corla has to hand the baby over, or Sunday hands the baby over to Corla, gets on the phone to answer more questions. We're in the salt scrub business. Funny part about that is we come to find out 10 years later, that guy had never made a salt scrub either. So there is a thing about positive and making it happen. So needless to say, we got him going. We still work with that guy today, 20 plus years later. He's been a fantastic resource. He's moved around. He's now up in Fullerton. It got us into bath and body. And so in the bath and body business, we started doing salt scrubs, sugar scrubs, et cetera. We also realized that because we had this importing thing, there was a lot of fourth quarter business in kits, bath kits, and kind of similar like these oil sets, but now they have body butters. They'd actually look like something like this. So this is a kit kind of product here. You couldn't make them in the US because the labor was too expensive to do it. And you'd want to have this for a white elephant gift, right, at Christmas time and so forth. And so these were great little items that the customer could buy for $9.99 or whatnot, take them to a party and give them away. And so that got us going. Our partner in China, Wendy, is a fantastic lady. She lives in Hong Kong, and she's a family business as well. And she basically was, this is going to be fantastic. So she actually started her own bath and body product business in China for us. And so currently today, we don't own the factory, but we're very, very close partners. And she makes all of our bath and body product that comes out of China. So we now have China and US sourcing that really, really set us up nicely. In fact, as we got into that kit business, one of the things that we were saying, okay, well, we've got to get these kits going. And so we went to TJ Maxx, and the buyer, Diane Todd, she basically gave us a meeting. And so the girl, Sunday and Corla, went up, and these were the first samples that they showed them. And we got the order. So no matter what, you can make samples work. These are slipper kits. It looked a lot better once it got to production. Imagine, if you will, Ms. Spire, we're going to do 1,000 in this color. We'll do 1,000 in this color. Over on this side, we're going to change this pink and make it look like this. But these are the samples we used in that initial sale. She gave us a test. We got the order. It went fantastic. It built from there, and it went really, really well until TJ Maxx actually made a decision that they did not want to do any more China-made goo, lotions and washes. And so that shifted our business. We had other customers that we dealt with, but that went really, really well and got us going. And so at that point, we're early 2000s at that point. We have our sporting goods business still, manufacturer business, and this bath and body business. And so we said, you know what, these don't mix. We have to focus on what we're doing. And so with that, basically what we did was we shifted and said, all right, in the sporting good business, when I was a kid, I could buy a North Face sleeping bag for $250. Well, now that same sleeping bag is $100. So now I got to sell 2 or 3 of those, buy 2 or 3 of those. In addition, outdoor participation is going down. We're like, okay, that's not good. Over on this side, bath and body, every woman has 5 to 6 bottles of goo. We call it goo. That's what anything that's inside, whether it's a body butter, a lotion, a wash, whatever it might be. In addition, men are starting to get into the game. And so we saw this huge growth pattern that was taking place. And so we decided we sold off the 7 Summits, and we moved into SJ Creations, which is now our business today. And that's SJ right there. So SJ, that's a long time ago. They're much older now. So they're 16 and almost 18. But this is Spencer and Jensen. These are our daughters. And so SJ was named after them. Our mission statement became that SJ is your resource for lifestyle enriching product, creating and manufacturing and distributing high quality bath and body products, spa gift products, home accent products to specialty stores, large retailers, drugstores, and department stores. And so that's who we basically became. And now we started to be much more focused. And so this is kind of who we are today. Overview here, we supply all types of HBA products. As you can see, these are oils. Oils we got into about 4 years ago. We basically provide, you name it, in a goo, we can make it and we can figure it out. You can see some of the products that we do up here. With our discounters, they do quick runs, so they'll do anywhere between 1,000 of something up to 5,000 of something, and maybe more. In these, as you can see, each of these oil sets, they would do somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 of each unit. We are still privately owned. We have 10 full-time people. We're in Encinitas, located suburb of Encinitas. When Sunday, my wife moved out here from Wichita, she was like, I don't want to go too far away from home, so everything has to be within a mile radius. So it works out really nicely. And then we use contract manufacturers. So we have a guy that's up in Fullerton. We have another one up in Sylmar, Chatsworth. We have one in North Carolina. And then we have our China connection, which has been invaluable.
Are they respecting the ingredients? Are you doing it for them, or are they doing it? Or are you doing it?
It's a mix. So what we'll do is if we have a formula, so that's a critical point to our whole business, is good chemists and good product development. And so that'll be, so that chemistry part of it, so many of these formulas are basically very standard. Whether you're buying it from us or from Sephora, pretty much the ingredient decks are pretty similar. Then it's making sure that your factory is clean, it's tested, and so forth. So all of the factories that we use are FDA approved, even in China. Our China factories had the FDA from the US and from China come into their factory. So we meet all those regulations. We make sure to watch what's going on. I'd like to tell you it's really complicated science, but it's not. It's pretty basic. And as you get in, even the oils are even easier to kind of deal with. But it becomes, where it really gets complicated is when we move into sunscreens. That's where anything that's an active ingredient is something that's actually going to do something for you. So sunscreen, you have actives which are going to protect you from the sun. That's where then it gets a little bit more complicated. So new product development, concept to shelf, superior customer service, logistics, you hear all of this. That is kind of what when our buyer at Ross calls us, they call us knowing that Sunday's going to respond within usually minutes, and that we will have them a product or a presentation very, very quickly. We just got into mascara and fake eyelashes. The first product that kind of sent me off into that was a tough one for me to deal with. Because I usually go and see the factories. I go, whether we're in China. One of the things that we kind of made one of our trademarks is that every factory we deal with, we go to see. Even those baskets that we developed the baskets, and basically it was a 4-hour flight, another 6-hour drive to go stand in a field of willow. And all the Chinese were like looking at me going, you want to go where? I want to see where the basket material comes from. And then they showed me how it was made. It was all done through homes and families, and it was super cool. But we have found that it's really, really important to go and see what you're doing. And so whether it's here in the US or in overseas, that's a very important part of us. So kind of the journey of retail. So these are customers, some of the customers that we've done business with. Private label has been our mainstay of our business. It's kept us going, and it's been a fantastic part of our business. Retail partners aren't always partners. They'll say they're partners, but sometimes not partners. And then I like this one, beggars can't be choosy until they can. And so a couple of stories. What I'm meaning there is in the beginning, take whatever you can, as long as you can make sure the P&L works and the cash flow works. Go for it, but customers are tough. Bed Bath & Beyond, they've got 1,800 plus doors, big box and so forth, but they have a huge amount of markdowns, they have chargebacks, they have all kinds of other little things that you have to deal with. In addition, their culture is tough. One of the things that we found, we were doing a body butter business with them under the Spencer & Jensen name, had end caps, we had to go through testing to get it, we finally got it in their stores. It was going great, getting orders coming in. All of a sudden, the orders stopped coming. Start calling the buyer. Nothing. We figured there's something going on. Finally, the buyer get a hold of her 3 months later. Oh, yeah, I canceled that like 4 months ago. Did you think to tell us or let us know? Nope, that's just the way it is. And then that product that we'd actually made for them, they weren't going to take. So now this is 10, 15 years ago, and their culture may have changed and so forth. But the point there is, you really have to dig in as you get to know the retailers to understand what their programs are. On the other side, TJ Maxx, Shopko, those guys, super clean. And by super clean, they don't have huge markdown fees. They take the product and they own the product. And that's a huge part. Bed Bath was one of those notorious to say, hey, sell-through wasn't great, take the product back. Well, over at TJ Maxx and Home Goods and those guys, we take it, we're done with it, go. And they pay in 30 days. So those really are the kind of clean retailers that we're looking for. Sears and Kmart, God rest their souls. It's been a long death. So we dealt with them after they merged Kmart and Sears. And right from the beginning, you knew it was going to be ugly. The good thing was they were still paying bills. They were still building business. They were still doing things. It took us about 4 years to get in there. I go back to the same buyer. And I think finally she felt sorry for me and said, all right, here you go. And then that opened up to get this piece of business, which was slipper kits. And it was a slipper, a robe, and some lotion and wash. And it was a fantastic piece of business. The key there was that we understood we could buy it, and they wanted to buy it and pick it up in China and then ship it over. We went and did the math, and we found out we could import it, probably one of the reasons that they're going out of business. We could import it cheaper than they could and improve our profit. So they said, look, nope, we'll bring it in here, and we'll deliver it to your distribution centers, and then you guys are good. So Sears and Kmart, that was a learning one. Shopko, we had a great private label program with. Met the gal at a show. Rarely do we do shows. And in that show process, she was fantastic. And one of the things, if you get into retail or you're dealing with buyers of any sort, you find a good buyer, and I mean that they respond to you, they're respectful, they actually converse with you, run with it, because those are the best ones. Unfortunately, she moved, we lost the business. And that's one of our biggest challenges, right? Is as retailers go, buyers are always moving. And smart retailers shift their buyers around every 2 to 3 years. So what they'll do, because what happens is you build these really great relationships, and come year 4, I mean, you're just getting business like nobody's business. So now when they shift it around, you have to meet a new buyer. You have to get to know the buyer. So the worst day in our office is when we're getting a new buyer, because now we have to develop that relationship again and hope that they're going to still be buying from us. Target. First time we lost money. So we were doing so good. And this is probably 10 years or so into business. They had a dollar section. The Target still have that dollar section at the front of the store. So we got into the dollar section under a brand called Fancy Nancy. It was a kid's cartoon. We bought the license or used the license. It was a great piece of business, 100,000 units, a couple of SKUs, pretty clean. Thought this is going to be fantastic. Got into the testing. And so customers, retailers will require testing depending upon what your product is. And this is USP 51 and USP 61. And what they are is that there's no lead in your product, that the water's clean, that the details that you're not going to poison somebody. They'll also test the plastic, the labels, et cetera. And so what we found was that was no problem. I'd budgeted that in. Then they came back and said, hey, by the way, it's Fancy Nancy. So it's kind of a kid's product. So you have to do children's testing as well. All of a sudden, another $40,000 worth of testing. The problem was, and my learning was that we were only in the dollar section. And if we could have been in the dollar section and the regular section, it would have been no problem. But because the dollar was finite, it was basically, the 100,000 units and you're done. Therefore, we couldn't recoup the cost from those tests. So testing is really, really important to keep an eye on. As mentioned here, clean retailers, they're just meaning, solid relationships, private label, good margin, payment terms. The beauty is now we can be a little bit more choosy of who we're with. Perfect, okay. I'm gonna go through a little bit quick, so if there's any questions. So product development, mentioned here, our chemist becomes really important. We drive a lot of that. The problem is usually, any chemists in the room before I offend you? So chemists are fantastic and they're brilliant, but they don't understand marketing or sales. They're in there and they're making some really cool stuff, and you're like, look, I need you to put a little bit more of this in, a little bit more of that. Well, but that's not gonna work. You're like, just do it, please, so we can sell the product. So, but it becomes really important because you want a good chemist who can actually develop a product that you can turn and now sell. You'll see right here, so this is a hemp oil, right? Of course, it's going to be hemp oil. We have charcoal over here. All of these don't have huge percentages of that ingredient in it. They have enough that we can claim it on the label, and it gives some beneficial mark to it. If you go and you went to a straight hemp oil or a straight charcoal product, your price ends up being ratcheted way up. So that development piece becomes, there's that combination, right, of creating a really good product that people are going to like and want more of, but making sure you watch your price. And especially in the customer base that we're using, the discounters and so forth, that becomes very, very important. Yep.
So in an area that's still very fragmented, how do you differentiate yourself on a shelf?
So branding, so in the discounters, the beauty is a lot of the places we try to go to have limited shelf space. So the less shelf space means the less SKUs. Like, we don't deal with Whole Foods. Whole Foods is fantastic, and they are probably a stalwart of the industry. But they've got 24 feet by 8 feet tall of product. And so you put a bottle of lotion, it is so hard to differentiate. So one of our things is that we're going to go in and we're going to try to get as much of that space as we can and control the space, because then the customer only has a certain amount of choices. Additionally, what you'll see in one of the slides here, different brands that we do. So these are different brands that we'll sell under. So we've gone out and created about 20 different brands that we have, and so we can market. So even though there may be 4 different products on the shelf, we've basically selected and created our own. It's all our brands kind of thing.
Different question. So in TJ Maxx or Home Goods is looking who's going to fill that space, there's got to be a ton of competition.
Huge, yeah.
So how do you differentiate to Home Goods if they should take through a product?
It becomes price point and art. So our graphic artist is critical. So we've had a graphic artist win with us for 10 years. One of the best things that we did, and that I recommend, is when we hired her, she had a business sense. She wasn't, any graphic artists in the room? Graphic artists are fantastic, but they're like chemists. If they're going to design the most beautiful product in the world, and they're like, can I sell that? Well, when we come out, we create themes and so forth, and you'll see in here as you look at this product, it all has different looks and it really has that appeal. And so in our product category, there's probably about 4 or 5 different players. What happens is that with the discounters, if they can't get all the big name closeouts, then they're coming to us to fill that space. And they're going to look at, and they're going to say, okay, Anthropologie is doing huge business in something like a body oil. Well, how can we do it? But instead of it being $40, it needs to be $9.99. And so it becomes a price combination. It's really so much of what we do is look. It's the look and feel. The bummer is that when we're in some of these formats, we have to really watch how the product is built. Customers will tear that product apart. And so we have to make sure glue dots are used, stickers, whatever it is, to make sure that the customer cannot easily get in that product and tear it apart. That's just kind of the nature of the business. But differentiating, it really is the buyer's look. We are we've developed a huge business in shaped bottles. Yes, shaped bottles. I'm in China trying to get my factory mold guy to make these perfect. No, the scarf needs to be a little longer in the back. The eyes and the nose. This nose, super hard to try to figure out because you can't make it go out because it won't work in a mold. So those are some of the things that we've differentiated. We have 20 different designs of this. Soap on a rope. Who's using soap on a rope? That's right. Nobody is, but we're selling 500,000 units of this stuff. It's crazy. It's soap on a rope. So this is actual soap with a rope coming out of it. And it was back in the 70s. It was really popular. This one actually doesn't, but and so we've designed all kinds of different looks. You hang it. This is exactly what I went through. I'm like, where the heck is all this stuff going? And so we make it really fragrant, and it looks attractive. I mean, we make a starfish, and this thing is the most awkward piece of soap you've ever seen. I'm like, there's no way somebody's using this thing to clean themselves. But I think it becomes part of the decoration, and it's been a great piece of business. And so that's what we're always looking for. A buyer, these oil sets that you're looking at, the buyer basically from TJ Maxx, it was one of our inroads back into her. She was having trouble finding somebody that could make oil sets. She came up with a couple of ideas. We expanded that into 15 different items. She selected 8 of those. We ended up getting orders for 10 to 15,000 of those each. And at that point, then we had this 90 days to deliver. And so all of this product here that you're looking at, so the box was designed, we did all the design work. We sell 95% of our product from a PowerPoint. Take a PowerPoint up, our graphic artist does all the artwork, here's what we've got here, here's the price, here's how many you have to buy, here's what we're doing. She says yes, no. At that point then we start to create pre-production samples. Pre-production samples could be either mocked up at our offices, or we may be able to get actual labels and parts and pieces that are real. We then show the buyer, she signs off on it, we move to production. So like in this case, I'm gonna borrow this. So this basically, this box is not just a printed box. This is actually a chipboard, or not chipboard. This is not a chipboard, it's an actual handmade box. So this was handmade up in northern China. The dividers have to be put in. The cap and the bottle were bought here in the US. The label was bought in the US. We labeled it all in the US. However, the box came in, assembled, with the divider in it, and went to our contract manufacturer on this one that was up in Fullerton. He did all the assembly, put it together. We then provided some of the product you'll see pre-tickets on, so the customer wants that product ready to go to the shelf. So whether it's $9.99 or $19, so we have to put the pre-ticket on. We put the carton markings on, so it goes right into their DC and hopefully right out to their shelf.
Do they reorder the product? Or is it
Sometimes.
one-time deal, or-
That's the bummer with that business. So when we were Bed Bath & Beyond, constant reorders. Shopco, constant reorders. In this business, it's basically whoever's got the prettiest looking product, this day. This wood cap in this one here, this was a fun one. This is a wood cap on here, and the buyer really, really likes it, and so they've reordered that a number of times, but it's not very common that they're reordering. They always,
You're reinventing it.
that's exactly, want it fresh and new and fresh. So we have 3 graphic artists on staff, and that becomes such a critical part of creating themes and so forth of the look and feel. I know I'm limited on time. I'm gonna go to a couple of just takeaways on, so a couple of things that just I think worth sharing and so forth. As we've done our business, profit and loss is definitely important and critical, and you need to always be looking at it, but cash is king. Didn't matter what we did on that sale for that soft-sided cooler, if we didn't have cash and couldn't find cash, it isn't gonna happen. So many business I see, so many people I talk to, if they run out of cash, game over. So cash flow is always such a critical. Easiest part, talked about a little bit, but is selling the product. It's hard to get in that door, but once you get the buyer's attention, that selling piece is fun and somewhat easy. Don't tell Sunday and don't let her see this. But then it's making it happen, right? And so like you can see how many moving pieces are on this, these boxes and so forth. Just say yes. Hopefully that theme came through. Relationships are still so critical. Building and maintaining those. Right now, we are in a really great place with our core customers. We were just in Kansas City, and they're texting and calling Sunday pretty much every other hour. We have 2 big meetings next week, but they know that they can come to us in point of differentiation. They know they can come to us. They could still probably get us to get product done and on their shelf by December. And that's huge for them because they're always looking. They've got open to buy. Hey, we need to fill this. Can you do that? Visiting and cultivating your relationships is huge, as mentioned. I go to China about 4 times a year. And it's funny because sometimes I'm going and we're going to be out at different factories the whole time. But I want to see what things look like, where they're at. The guy that makes these molds is a family business, but it's like the ghetto when I go there. It's because it's metal and it's just, you can't be clean about creating molds. I mean, big metal molds are tough. Glass factories, we do a lot of glass now, and no matter what, glass is a nasty business. It's molten glass, it's super cool. So if you guys like factories, it's a great thing to go check out these different factories. But we do find that because we go visit them, they end up wanting to work with us more. Now, that's not always the case, but it definitely does help. Ready for the unexpected. You'll never ever be ready, but it will happen. That container, so that basically there was a port strike. This is going back 15 years. We found out, here's the learning, the captain of the boat, the captain of the container vessel, he's in charge, or she, and they can do whatever they want with what's on their container, on their boat. So he's got 5,000 40-foot containers on there. We went on strike. Long Beach and LA were closed. Closest port was Ensenada. He dropped all the containers in Ensenada, Mexico. No infrastructure. People didn't get their containers for 6 to 8 months after that. It was like, how do you figure this out? Where do we go? And I still think today, the reason we got ours within a couple of weeks. It was fantastic. But we had a 20-foot container and a 45-foot container that were coming in. And I think because they were differentiated sizes, somehow, the good Lord took care of us and said, okay, here they are. But those are things you can never prepare for. Today, I'll come back on that. Infrastructure is huge. Coleman was a fantastic learning environment for that. We were talking about as you go through, working for a good corporation is a great experience. It teaches you so much about creating correct spreadsheets, PowerPoints, just basic systems that you can then take and put in play when you start your business. Factory in China is very important, and I don't remember why I put that one there, but it was, visiting. We talked about visiting, that was it. So very important. Ignorance is an excuse, will only get you so far. So we did have a patent infringement. That didn't go so well, and I pleaded ignorance, and that didn't work. However, our charges started at about $250,000, and we got it down to about $50,000. So, and more importantly, we kept the business. So, and that goes into our do the right thing. So at that point, the customer that we were working with, what happened was we developed a product, and it was a unique bottle. And unfortunately, it did not have a patent. We'll always look to make sure it didn't have a patent pending or anything. It was just what we thought was a standard pear-shaped bottle. And so we went ahead and made it. And needless to say, we were into sales, and it was cranking. I mean, this product was going nuts. And all of a sudden, cease and desist and so forth. Our customer calls us in with, of course, their lawyers and everything, and doing the right thing. One of the things we found out is we didn't have a signed agreement with our retailer. And so we could have walked in and said, not our deal, you deal with it. And so instead, they had the lawyers, they had everybody in there. Sunday walked in and said, before anyone said anything, hey, we're taking care of this, we'll cover everything, we'll handle the whole thing. And the whole room, visible sigh of, oh, thank God. And so we needless to say, went through the whole process. And this is another big thing is, as we went through this, talked to all these people, it's gonna cost us lots of money. Everyone was freaking out. And finally, one of my buddies who also has a business said, did you call the lawyer? Have you called them and just talked to them? Like, duh. Sure enough, called him. He read me the riot act, how stupid I was, and all that kind of stuff. But that opened the dialogue. And from there, we were able to negotiate and get it down to a reasonable price. And more importantly, keep the business. So finally, kind of as we wrap up, our new challenges just kind of is the retail landscape, as everyone knows, is changing dramatically. Amazon is dominating. Retailers, the mall, regular retail is gone. We're excited about who we're with right now because they're very healthy and they're very solid. But that is a consistently thing that we have to always be looking at. Trump tariffs, that's, again, unexpected. The rumor was out there. So right now, we have, in September, the 10%. So there's 3 lists on tariffs if anybody's into bringing stuff in. The third list hit consumer products. The first 2 lists were widgets and nuts and bolts that you can kind of absorb in the cost of a product. Now, this product here, for example, this was zero duty. It's now 10%. So that's 10%. We've already got containers shipping and showing up. In fact, we had 4 containers that were due to arrive on September 18th. They arrived on September 24th. That's the day they were knocking on the door to come through customs. That's the day the new customs went in place. $10,000 extra. Boom, done. Nothing we could do about that. So that is ongoing. That is, I think, going to be, that's probably one of the biggest things that everybody as a retail and manufacturer is going to face. We're preparing for the 25% that's going to potentially happen January 1. I think between the election and there's a G20 summit that everyone pray that those guys get together and they talk and they work things out. But if that doesn't, we are already, us along with everybody else in the world, is starting to bring product in early. So we've got 2.5 million parts that are on order that we hope that will arrive here before January 1st. And that'll save us, if all goes well, about $100,000. So It's a tough one, and I'm not sure where that's gonna go. That leads into increasing costs. It's just because of that. In addition, raw materials and so forth. Constantly seeing the cost and managing costs. Because the bummer is, we can't go back to the retailers unless everybody did it together, and that is not appropriate. And so basically, we can't go to the retailer and say, hey, you got to bump your cost up to $9.99 instead of $8.99 if nobody else is doing it. And so therefore, that continues to make a big challenge. What's next for us? Continue to build with our core customers. We have tons of opportunity in there that we have untapped, and so we continue to work with them and hopefully entrench ourselves. Product development is always the biggest thing. We're always looking for the newest trend, what's going on, and then a factory that can actually make it and do it. We're working on a mineral spray sunscreen that I think would be super cool if we can get it worked out. We had one last year. It didn't work out so well. Web presence, yep, we don't have one. My wife and I, so here you go. My wife and I do not agree on the web, so she's like, that's a fad. I'm like, guess what, honey? Probably not a fad. So, but to get a web presence going costs money and marketing, SEO, et cetera. And so that's a constant challenge. And again, part of our thing is that as we're building our business and continuing to grow, we are full with what we have and trying to raise our daughters and make sure that they're happy and healthy. And maybe someday we'll take over their business. That would be really cool. So, but basically that kind of wraps me up. So, any questions?